Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is heading to Moscow for talks with President Vladimir Putin as Tehran steps up diplomatic efforts to try and end the war with the United States. Araghchi has been on a regional tour since Friday, with stops in Oman and in Pakistan and consultations with Gulf and regional partners. He's also held calls with counterparts in Qatar, in Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Meanwhile, Trump has cancelled plans to send his envoys to Pakistan, saying that a new proposal from Tehran was not good enough. Just a little while ago, Araghchi posted on X and said he was appreciative of my gracious hosts in Oman, important discussions on bilateral matters and regional developments. As only Hormuz littoral states, our focus included ways to ensure safe transit that is to benefit of all dear neighbours and the world. Our neighbours are our priority. Earlier, Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi released a similar statement following his meeting with Iran's Foreign Minister, saying he had a good discussion on the Strait of Hormuz. He went on to say, as littoral states, we recognise our shared responsibility to the international community and the urgent humanitarian need to free the seafarers held for far too long. He also said that much diplomacy is required and practical solutions to ensure lasting freedom of navigation. Al-Mikdad Al-Ruhid is live for us in Tehran. So first up, Al-Mikdad, what is Iran expecting from these visits to Oman and to Russia?
Yes, indeed. Abbas Araghchi and his team have been circling and traveling and in active diplomacy, actually shuttle between capitals here in the region, starting from Islamabad, then head to Moscow, and then again stopping in Islamabad, and he will visit Moscow tomorrow. So this is what we call here in active diplomacy from Iran's foreign minister and his team, that they are trying to say that we are open to diplomacy. We are trying to gain a regional support from our partners, and especially when it comes to Oman and Muscat, we know that they have a good history with them as a strategic ally, a strategic partner, especially when it comes to the negotiations and the past negotiations round. They are a they were mediators between Tehran and Washington, and also when it comes to Moscow tomorrow, some analysts here speak about strategic relation between Moscow and Tehran, and as they said, they want regional support. They are try to demonstrate and consolidate their presence here in the region. And as you said, we have just heard from Abbas Araghchi. He just posted on his account on X. He speak about important discussions on bilateral matters and regional developments as only Hormuz littoral states. Our focus included ways to ensure safe transit, that is to benefit all dear neighbors and the world. Our neighbors are our priority. The bottom lines here and between the lines here, that the Strait of Hormuz is being one of the main issue. He transferred his perspective. He spoke about this matter, especially when it comes to the blockade and to the escalation, the back and forth escalation between the United States Navy and IRGC Navy. We have seen in the past few days that both sides seizing vessels, and so this is one of the important issue that Abbas Araghchi tried to transfer through the regional partners.
And with this active diplomacy, what's been the reaction within Iran to the latest developments?
Actually, the reaction here is, we can call it, there is a support. Sometimes we know that President Pezeshkian and his team, and also many of officials here saying that we are open to dialogue, we are open to negotiate, but at the same time there is a deep mistrust, and there is a precondition, especially when it comes to the pressure imposed by the United States Navy on the Strait of Hormuz, and also they need the trust from Washington to go forward And also at the same time, we know that there is a cautious diplomacy from Iranians. They not engaged in direct negotiation for the past round of talks, but at the same time they are trying to say we need a good ground or good environment before engaging in any direct or indirect talk. At the same time, in the street, we saw that we hear voices of uncertainty. People try to say that we are in the middle of no peace, no war. So the uncertainty is shaping the air here. So overall, the message is clear. Iran tried to say that we are open, and also we are open to negotiate. But whether the big question remains whether this lead to a breakthrough or another round of negotiation or another round of deadlock, this will prevail in the next days.
All right, that's a picture from Tehran. Al-Migdad Al-Ruhaid, thank you. Let's hear now from Osama bin Javed, who's been following the latest developments from Islamabad.
Diplomacy is not dead. It's a process which is going to take its time and involve all actors. That is what we're being told here in Islamabad, as the Iranian foreign minister has made a quick stop to apprise the Pakistani leadership, which has been pivotal in bringing both sides together, and he's on his way to Russia, where he's going to have further meetings. In the last 24 to 48 hours, there's been a flurry of diplomatic activities, not just what the US president said about putting his envoys out of the equation, who are expected to arrive in Pakistan, but also with the Iranians. The Iranians, right after those long consultations with the Pakistanis, went to Oman, where they've met the Sultan, the Iranian foreign minister met his Omani counterpart, but then there was a flurry of phone calls. The Iranians have spoken to the Qataris, the Saudis, the Egyptians, as well as the French, and we believe there have been some communication with the Russians as well. That's where he is headed towards. So it appears that whatever happened, according to one diplomatic source, has became a catalyst that there needs to be a permanent end to hostilities. And that is what we're being told here in Islamabad, that we're inching towards a framework of sorts which provides a background with which all of these sides can come to an agreement. Not just the Iranians and the Americans, but essentially the Gulf countries as well. You've been hearing from various Gulf capitals that the situation warrants them be included in whatever the aftermath of the situation is going to be. They don't want a repeat of what happened in 2015 under the JCPOA, where they felt they were left out. So it appears that all of this is being built towards a deal. The Pakistanis are still hopeful that there will be a second round. Time, participants, and the details still not clear, but the diplomacy is happening. The levers are being pulled, the wheels are turning, and we're still getting hopeful signs from the Pakistanis that they will be able to mediate between them so that there is a permanent and an end to this conflict which is acceptable to all sides. Osama bin Javed, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
OK, let's re-examine the sticking points between the US and Iran and exactly what they are. Tehran is demanding an end to what it calls aggression and targeted assassinations, also seeking guarantees against future attacks and reparations for war damages. Tehran also calling for an end to fighting on all fronts, including those involving its allied groups, and it wants its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz recognised. Iran has rejected a 15-point list sent by President Trump. That was in late March. The US media say that list includes Iran dismantling its nuclear facilities and promising to never develop nuclear weapons. The US is also calling on Tehran to limit the range and number of ballistic missiles it has, to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and to end its support for regional allies. So let's take this on with Mark Kimmett now. He's a retired US general and a former Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs. General Kimmett, welcome back.
Thanks.
So first up, Abbas Araghchi, Iran's foreign minister, flitting about doing this shuttle diplomacy. And he was talking about his trip to Oman, saying that he was appreciative of his trip, and said that, talking about his neighbours, his literal states, our focus included ways to ensure safe transit that is of benefit to all dear neighbours and indeed the world. And then he said, our neighbours are our priority. Sort of a conciliatory tone there from Araghchi.
I'm not sure it's conciliatory as much as it's a bit of a charm offensive that he's going on in order to persuade countries other than his own that to side with the Iranians in this entire discussion. No doubt in those discussions painting America as the great evil without noting the fact that they are asking for tribute for transit through the Gulf and declaring sovereignty over that. Well, especially with Oman. Oman kind of doesn't want to see somebody sovereign over the Strait of Iran. They have a bilateral agreement with Iran now to share the effort.
Another idea, of course, is non-combat naval solutions to try and reopen the strait again. There's precedents for this back in the 80s, the tanker wars, I think it was.
Yep.
Tell us about that and how that might be applied to this situation now.
Well, in the backdrop of the Iran-Iraq war, that devastating war between those two countries in the 80s, there was an attempt by both sides to cripple the economy of each other's countries. What better way than to go after the oil resources flowing out of the Strait of Hormuz? The United States at that time, which was not a belligerent in this war, agreed to reflag the Kuwaiti tankers and escort them through the Strait of Hormuz. At that time, the United States was not a belligerent, was not a party to the conflict. And so the decision had to be made by either Iraq or Iran, or both, did they want to drag the Americans into the war. So by providing that shield, we took the risk of drawing America into the war, but neither Iran nor Iraq took that upon themselves.
There is a difference today, of course, isn't there? Because the US is a belligerent.
Well, and that's exactly why there is so much talk about an alliance effort separate from the United States, number one, by those who are not in the war, and more than likely the Iranians would not want to drag them into the war. Number two, they're far more self-interested in getting those products out of the Strait of Hormuz than the energy self-sufficient United States.
Like the UK, for example.
Like the UK, Germany, France, India, and China.
All right, and we've got now, finally, 40 nations led by the UK and France are exploring, but only exploring potential for this. Why has it taken so long for them to get involved, do you think?
Well, I think much of it goes to the fact that they say they're not party to this conflict. They weren't advised on this conflict. They didn't want this conflict. But the subtext behind that is they've been treated so horribly by Donald Trump over the past couple of years, a combination of repudiations, insults, and in many ways attempts to drive the allies to put far more of their money into defense, some of it which is reasonable. But the combination of all that, the totality of all that, has really strained the relationship between the United States, United Kingdom, particularly France, Spain. And so at the time that the Americans come hat in hand for help, in a bit of schadenfreude, they're saying, no, we're not going to help. Now they realize there is a challenge not only to their relationship with the United States, but to their own populations as they see the price of gas, petrol at the pump, going up enormously, and the recognition that petroleum is not the only thing that comes out of the strait. Fertilizer comes out of the strait, helium, which is necessary for other products, comes out of the strait, and their inaction could be collateral to a humanitarian disaster as a result of this.
This notion of compelling Iranians back to the negotiating table, to the negotiating table, by the sheer presence of this huge force, does that work in a situation like this where Iran does still have the capability to strike back?
Well, the United States did not get what it wanted at the negotiating table, walked away from it and said, if we can't negotiate a solution, we will compel a solution. I think, unfortunately, the 46 years practice that the Iranians had of withstanding sanctions, resilience, high costs, we found that the military solution resulted in a military success, but that military success did not translate into strategic success. The Iranians said, we're going to outlast you. We know how to resist. We're not trying to win. We're just trying to resist. And we win by not losing. And we have patience. We know Americans don't.
All right, we'll leave it there. General Mark Emmett, thank you so much. Thank you.